So let's get into the sitting workstation. This is a very old picture, as you can see, with the monitors that were being used back in the day and computer setup. But it also is interesting for me because I still see people kind of going through this process through the day in different Zoom sessions that I'm in, personal, just looking at people, but also just talking to them how they feel, right? So maybe this is a little bit of exaggeration over here on the far right. But certainly there's many days that people do feel this way. And then, what position do they put themselves in to do that? So important to see. So sitting workstation with a monitor and keyboard, you want to really be careful that you're not getting into that forward head posture. You want to make sure that your thoracic spine muscles are working, that you're reducing your hip flexion. So you're keeping your hips in a little bit greater than 90-degree position typically in terms of that flexion. And then we want to make sure that our shoulders aren't internally rotated in the short pecs that I mentioned earlier. And then also the hamstrings. The hamstrings get shortened if you have excessive knee bending. So some of those chairs where you're like almost kneeling or something like that can be really detrimental over a long period of time because it really puts an excessive shortening on the hamstrings, pressure on the knee joints and shin and some of those tissues. So that can be potentially beneficial for certain periods of time, but not by rule as it's a good situation. So sitting workstation, a lot of what we do here at Breakthrough in terms of our ergonomics evaluations is to try to not be too focused on, just all the very specifics, because I shouldn't say not focused on all the specifics, but to try to be in tune with each individual in line with some of the key parameters that research has shown us, over the years. Because again, different individuals are in different work situations. They have a different variety through the whole day. And a lot of times ergonomics evaluations are based on one position. And the reality is that we're going to be encouraging you to not be in that one position all the time. So we're going to give you tips and tricks for how to keep moving while you're at your desk, as opposed to, okay, you need to get your eyes set 24 inches from the monitor and you have to be here and you have to do this. So we're going to give you those tips, but we also are very flexible in terms of helping people work the way that they want to work and giving them opportunities to really find what works for them, setting them up for the long haul, and also just being that continued support, as opposed to, I had a ergonomic evaluation 5 years ago and it helped, but then I shifted jobs and so it doesn't really matter anymore. Or technology has changed so that some of the things I learned doesn't really help. So back here, I find that this little wedge in the picture on the right is really helpful because it kind of helps set up the pelvis in a good position. So there are some chairs on the market that do that, and we potentially set your incline for that. Also, sometimes even not necessarily in the workstation, but going on trips, planes, or sitting in a movie theater, or going to a sporting event, or the theater or something of that. Taking a sweatshirt or a towel or something like that, and putting it underneath your sit bones could be a really great option to help kind of tilt the pelvis in a successful position, make it easier for you to not have to use so much muscle work to support it. So with the hands and wrists, anytime that we're starting to really move and twist and things like that, or be in too much flexion or extension, that can be really bad. So there are plenty of different options out there with keyboards and mice, split keyboards, and tracking devices, roller devices, things of that nature. And so there are going to be continuously more and more of these put out there. But the key is that we want to really maintain a neutral position with our wrists and hands. And so whatever creates that ability for you to do so is good. The split keyboard situation can be good in theory. I don't find that a lot of people really end up using it. It's not quite as practical, along with then they're a little bit more clunky when they just go to use their laptop or something of that nature. But certainly, reaching and splitting and, alt tab and control and all of these multiple functions, especially with programmers who have all sorts of coding that they're doing, which have these different things. So you just want to really be aware that you're not creating that, but that you might be hitting it, with both of your hands or something, as opposed to trying to um, do the maximal amount and cover the maximum amount of territory by reaching and twisting. We don't want to do that. So sitting workstation, again, there's so many different places that people work and sit and theories as to what's going on. So again, in this first one, it's interesting. She's, on this really cool device, that's got the gym ball and allows her to move and things like that. But how's she using it, right? She's all hunched over in that forward head posture, leaning on her elbows and things like that. So, a device like that, it doesn't matter, right? You spend $1,000 on a chair or whatever, but if that's how you're going to use it, then, is that really worth it? So a lot of people don't have to spend a lot of money, and their companies don't have to spend a lot of money on getting proper stuff or the best ergonomic equipment, because oftentimes people end up using it like this. So that's kind of where we come in, is to show you how to do that. Same thing here with this guy on his tablet, hunched over. That's fine. If he's going to maybe be actively stretching out that left hip, that might be an option while he's there. But maybe he's probably better off just taking 5 minutes, stretching out his hip, and then getting back into that position. And then, of course, the beanbag scenario. We've all been there, but that just puts a lot of stress on the neck. So we think we're nice and comfortable, but he's having to hold his head up. That's causing even more rounding of the shoulders and tightness in here to maintain. Otherwise, he's going to fall back against gravity. And the same thing can often happen with people who are working on the couch or working in bed or something like that. So all sorts of different ways that people do it, and they say that they're super comfortable and all the things. So we've seen it all, maybe not all, but a lot of it, and we'll continue to see more. So happy to help you with that. So a lot of times we talk about musculoskeletal problems, but the reality is there's a lot of other things that can really become problematic if you're not in the best possible ergonomic situation. So headaches, blood clots and things like that. Lungs, right? You can get clotting and things of that nature if you're too stagnant for too long a period of time and you're not balancing it with some exercise and stretching and things like that. Arms, reduction of physical activity there. People can develop stomach problems and obesity and things like that. And then also just the general lack of proper metabolism and things of that nature. Certainly a lot of people that have shifted to pure standing situations and they swear by it, or maybe even standing with a treadmill or something like that. There's a balance, right? So I think it's not necessarily key that there's a magic bullet one way or the other, that you got to be standing all the time or sitting all the time. I think the human body was meant to move. The computer was developed by us, and so it didn't take into all the considerations that are really needed. And so it's just something that you want to make sure that it's not driving you, that you're driving it. And then again, different heart issues and leg and obviously back. So making those adjustments is really important. So again, from an ideal standpoint, current recommendations are that you're 18 to 24 inches away, depending on different vision scenarios or the glare of your computer. So there's certain variability there. Your elbow 70 to 135 degrees of flexion, so that you want that space, and then also just greater than 90 degrees of hip flexion, where the angle between your trunk and your thigh is just greater than 90 degrees. And then also at your knee, where you're not tighter than 90 degrees, but kind of like between 90 and 125 degrees of flexion, that internal angle there. If you're shorter than 90, then those hamstrings are going to be unnecessarily shortened. Same thing with the hip flexors, where the trunk meets the legs, is if that angle is less than 90, then your hip flexors are going to be really tight. So that's a problem. Correct sitting posture. Again, people have, 2 monitors, 3 monitors. They might have 2 different workstations, so it's different in different situations. So we want to be aware of that and figure out, which is the primary monitor that you're looking at. One of the other things too is, if you're going to be working on this monitor in front of you, then you should be facing it and really sitting up properly and using your legs and all of these things. And being able to really turn and try to be present in most cases. So then if she's moving all the way to that left monitor, she should be rotating her chair, maybe moving the keyboard with her, really focusing there. And so it's just important, depending on the kind of work that you're doing and how you're moving things around. Again, that's where having an expert come in, even virtually, you can kind of talk through these things and strategize how that can just be more efficient for you, or finding some shortcut keys and things of that nature. The other difference is if you have a corner situation, is it rounded or is it squared off? Do you have a keyboard tray, or what's going on there? So again, not only posture, but just your position with it, or maybe if you're going to reach, for your printer, are you just reaching like this type of thing, or are you actually using your legs, moving forward, and moving back, and really, being able to kind of move a little bit more athletically while you're at your desk. We don't want anyone to get into the fetal workstation, but this is also just kind of a little funny slide that we found where we don't want people crumbled up because you didn't adhere to any of these things. And again, it's not just the equipment that you have, but how you use it. Right? I think that's one of the biggest things.